Yeah, this might be my game of the year, and it may not be close. Final Fantasy XVI has arrived. And don't you worry about a thing, this is gonna be spoiler-free. But I need to get this off my chest. Because Final Fantasy XVI was one of my most anticipated games of 2023, and one of my most anticipated games of the last few years, and I had a lot of hype and aspirations for this game. It just seemed like every update we got about the game just appealed to me more and alleviated my worries or concerns about this game, and now that I have controller in hand and I can play the game and I'm like 6.5 hours into the game, boy, man, woo, Bazinga! Yeah, this game slaps. I love the tone of this game, how it can go from these grandiose epic encounters, Soken's music just blaring in the background as you go after these certain fights that are mechanically interesting to fight and play, but also to look at and to hear. Seriously, these big fights and those moments. This is one of those games, in my opinion, that's built and predicated on its moments. It's moments in time where it just puts all it has on the table. It goes all in and says, you know what, here's what we got. And if you like what we got here, you're gonna like the game. And in my opinion, it does that often enough to where it doesn't overstay its welcome, but you stay intrigued as to what's going on with the story. There's moments where the story slows down and focuses more on world building or developing character dynamics and the like. And then there's moments where all those moments that led up to it just coalesce together in this grandiose moment. And it feels like this game is kind of structured in what I like to call mini climaxes, where normally a game or a story will have one big, massive climax near the end of the story, where all the build-up from before leads into that. And the game may still have that, but to me, the game feels like it's structured on the idea of saying, okay, here's a bunch of cool world building, a bunch of cool characters. Now we're gonna have that little bit of a culmination here and a big moment that will just sweep you off your feet with the music, the visuals, the gameplay, both the mechanics the boss are doing and what you are doing. And they work in tandem in a synergy to create an entertaining experience, both in the terms of pressing your buttons, but also just experiencing the moment. And the game does a stellar job at that. The game knows when it needs to be slow-paced, when it needs to be dark and gritty, when it needs to slip in a joke, a little bit of humor, a little bit of lightheartedness, when it just needs to show the dog doing cute dog things, and when the game needs to behead somebody. And I think so far, I'm very optimistic about the overall pacing of the game and the overall story developments that are happening. It's bold, it takes risks, and I appreciate it for that. Now, let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this game, and what I think will be the most controversial aspect of the game, and that is the gameplay. God, do I freaking love it! I love the gameplay so much, I may walk away from Final Fantasy XVI so long as the later stages of the combat and the endgame gameplay loop hold up to what's being built on right now. If the game can maintain this pace, this very well may become one of my favorite combat systems, if not my favorite combat system in all of Final Fantasy. It is very different to the days of old, but it has its own strengths and identity to it that I really appreciate. The combat flows from one ability to the next, weaving various combos together, maximizing your damage, understanding the moment, understanding the mechanics that the boss are doing, and reacting accordingly. Varying up your builds on a moment-to-moment basis if you want to, and if you have enough points so that you can elect to do that. Getting better at button inputs, getting better at reaction timing, getting better at identifying what the game is doing and what mechanics are being put in front of you for you to counter or react to. The game has a very low skill floor in my opinion, but an extremely high skill ceiling. And I'm not going to judge the game and just write it off as, say, button mashing just because you could technically beat the game if you just hit the square button repeatedly, I guess. Because one, you're going to take forever doing that. Two, you're not playing optimally. And I don't think you have to play optimally, but if you're only pressing the square button and you say the game's button spamming, I think that's a sign for me that you're not really in tune or understanding what the combat really is like. Because the game punishes button spamming. It's something I'm trying to work out of my own system when I'm playing the game. Because a lot of the times I like to spam a button to make sure that I can get that input on the earliest frame, but the game punishes you for doing that. It wants you to get the timing right, to understand how to weave in your magic bursts in between your standard attacks. Know when you want to target damage or stagger or will gauge as they call it. Know when an enemy has enough health to warrant maybe knocking them up into the air to do aerial combos and the like. Know when you want to get out of an aerial combo to swipe down onto the floor. Know when to call in Torgal, because yes, you can min-max Torgal as well. Getting better at parrying, getting better at dodging, understanding how to capitalize on playing well. Capitalize on doing those combos effectively to really maximize your damage. It's a game that plays in that burst window of stagger, right? Where outside of it, if you're just fighting regular enemies, it's like, okay, cool. Really fun with the AoE and bunching enemies up and then hit them with a Garuda Claw or something, and just swiping them into oblivion or hitting them with a massive fire sword. It's objectively cool in my opinion. But knowing when you should target just raw damage because the enemies don't have enough health, or for whatever other reason, whether an enemy's blocking, or hey, maybe it would be wise for like these mini bosses or these bosses to target for damage right now because I can passively build up that damage on their will gauge. But maybe they're about to hit that 50% mark, and at 50% marks, I have some abilities I can utilize to really capitalize on this. So maybe I want to use an ability that's going to maybe not do the most damage per se, but do will damage instead. I can capitalize on that. Do I have enough time to pull it off? Do I have enough time to really capitalize this? Let me learn the fight. Let me get better at the game. The game is pretty arcadey in that way, where the more effort you put into learning the game, including its mechanics and overall loop, but also the fights and encounters themselves, the more you get out of it, the more you are rewarded with better performance. You can get medallions for not getting hit on certain boss fights, if you do well enough. There's the arcade mode where you can replay certain stages and go for a higher score by doing more flashy combos or utilizing more of your kit. And I find that particularly fun and interesting because it's not just a matter of, oh, kill the enemy. It's, okay, now utilize the kit we give you to its maximum potential. And God, when it starts to click and you're just in the zone and you're dodging and parrying everything, it just feels right. It really does. Because it visually looks cool and mechanically is also satisfying in equal parts, and I really appreciate that out of Final Fantasy XVI. I think customization and progression overall is very simplistic. Like, you just unlock certain skills and then you can upgrade them to get their mastery. It's very simple, but it is quite effective. And I do get the feeling of planning out what I want for my next progression talent. What I want to master next, what new ability that I want. That's pretty cool. It's simplistic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I feel this is going to only get better as I unlock more and more icons, so that I have more abilities to utilize and swap around. If I had any gripe, I would maybe look to the map design, and this is like a small thing for me, as of right now, because there are certain stages that are more open in the design, that are not just linear corridors, and that's cool. However, I think it's kind of obvious when a stage is designed for combat, because it's kind of just a corridor you walk down. Now, the one from the demo is one I have gotten to in-game, Caer Norvent. And while yes, Caer Norvent is, basically a castle and it's constructed of corridors, there's multiple routes you can go down in here. There's rooms off the beaten path you can go and explore to find a few more goodies, and I do like that sense of exploration. The game rewards you for putting more time into it and overall just putting more effort into exploring and finding all of its secrets, as the game gives you various crafting materials, gil, or just like consumables like stone skin potions, or just, regular potions and eye potions. And while I would like to see some more non-linear open areas that allow me to engage enemies, I've gotten one, right? Like, there has been one, and the game is starting to open up in that regard, and I feel like if I just have one more stream, I may get some more levels like that, and I'm going to be happy about that. So if the game does do that, just like write off that entire criticism. Because right now, I'm still really enjoying the game. That gameplay loop is so smooth. Because there's no point in the game, right, that has felt like BS. There's no point where I'm like, that's unfair. Every time I mess up, every time I get hit, I'm like, okay, that is my fault because I wasn't paying enough attention. I was looking over here. Oh, I misinputted. Oh, I spammed a button too much and I got animation locked. Every error has felt like my error, not like the game is messing up or that the game is constructed in such a way where it feels unfair. It doesn't feel like that. And that to me is the hallmark of a good, difficult game. Because I wouldn't say beating the game itself is necessarily a difficulty, but beating it well or fast enough, or not getting hit, or getting enough of a high score in the arcade mode, that can be pretty challenging, as you learn the various mechanics. Like I said, the game has a low skill floor, but if you want to actually learn how the game plays and functions, you can learn a lot, and you can get very good at this game. And when you get good at this game, you can tell, because you can just see it, you can feel it in the flow of battle. You're doing way more damage. You feel like the boss, not the boss itself. You feel like you're the reason the boss should be fearful at night and keeping one eye open. It's sweet. It's fun. It's replayable. Hell, I played the demo like maybe 8 times just because I was having fun. And I wanted to test myself. I wanted to get good at this combat. That to me is the hallmark of a good combat loop. And when you pair that with excellent S-tier music, I'm telling you right now, this is Soken's masterclass. Soken is going off. Every song in this game is a banger. Every single one of them. And you can feel the Final Fantasy XIV team has their claws all in this game. There's so many little things, like the orchestrion role, collecting music, and the way that you do in this game. Just the overall feel of the world. It oozes the swagger of Final Fantasy XIV, and I love it for that, because Final Fantasy XIV is my favorite Final Fantasy, and one of my favorite games ever. And this feels like a darker, more mature version of Final Fantasy XIV in a single-player environment with combat that's extremely exciting and unique, and I love it for it. And the game is just getting better and better for me. So yeah, those are my first impressions with Final Fantasy XVI. Thumbs up for me. If the game can keep up this pace, right? I said this from the demo. If the game can just keep up this pace, it's basically a lock for my game of the year. That's how much I'm enjoying this game. And it's a really good feeling, right? Where you look forward to a game for years, it comes out, and it still exceeds your expectations. That's a good feeling. And we don't get it all that much nowadays. But I'm getting it here. So I'm going to call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.